breakthrough workshop. This is the last one. This is the one where you are going to work on actually coming up with your new offer idea, which is what this is all about. And the goal today is for you to walk away with a scalable offer idea that you are confident in, excited about, and ready to test. So, does anybody have any updates that they want to share since our last session? Maybe you had an aha moment, maybe you were exploring problems and like realized, oh snap, like that's something I would love to solve for my customers. I've never thought about it that way before. If anybody has anything to share right now, share it in the chat. It looks like Candace has her hand raised. So, Candace, please let me know what's going on, and I'll answer any questions you have if you have them. Jennifer says she thought of 4 more offer opportunities. Yay! Well, today we're going to help you to narrow that down to the one that you are really excited about testing and getting in front of the right people to see if that's what they want. So here's a little overview of what we're going to cover today. Dominique says 2 longtime customers have asked me if I offer a kind of service that I'm trying to develop. So problem to solve. There you go. So oftentimes we think that clarity is going to come from all of the pre-work that we do. And there's certainly a lot of valuable in doing strategy and doing market research. All of that is important. But the most clarity comes from getting feedback from your ideal customers. That's why I'm such a giant nerd for customer discovery. So let's talk about what we're going to cover in today's workshop. We're going to zero in on the problems that you are best positioned to solve. We're going to choose a specific target market to target with your new offer. We're going to brainstorm scalable offer ideas that solve big problems and make you big money. And finally, we're going to validate how to test your offer before you storm ahead and build it because it's important. And I don't want you to go off and spend weeks, months, or sometimes years. I've seen people do it for years, creating something that isn't necessarily the right thing. So how can we get feedback fast so that we can evolve the offer to meet the market in demand? So we're going to be building on the exercises that we did in day one. Is anybody here that was not present for day one and has not yet done the homework for day one? Because just so you know, this session is going to build on the work we did in day one, and we're not going to be going back and revisiting the previous exercises. So if you are here, what was the homework for day one? Rodney, you were here for the live session. The homework was essentially what you did in your workbook. So everything that we did in the workbook up to the first 5 steps, that's what you want to have had completed to really get the best value out of today's workshop. Now, Mary, it sounds like you weren't here and you weren't able to get ahead on kind of some of these exercises. That's okay. You can feel free to stay and participate and watch the session, but it may not be the best use of your time. Since again, everything we're going to work on is building on the day one exercises. So you will all also get access to a on-demand course version of the workshop that you can do on your own time. And that's going to be, you're going to get access to that tomorrow. Alicia's asking where the workbook is. Alicia, I'm going to drop a link to it right now in the chat. You were sent this, you should have been sent this by email in advance after the final workshop. So if you missed the last one live, you should have got a link to this and a link to the replay. If that didn't come through for you, maybe it landed in the wrong folder, no problem. I'll drop it in now. But again, I don't think you'll have time to catch up before we dive into today's exercises. So you can stay and you can join us and participate in the conversation. And then you can complete these exercises on your own time by watching the self-guided version of the course. So it's basically everything that we're covering in these 2 workshops broken up into a digestible course version. So it's a great option for you to do that on your own time. And for anybody who did attend this one, maybe you want to brainstorm another offer idea in the future, you can. You can go through it on your own with a team, easy peasy. Okay, so I just dropped a link to the Smart Workbook. You still have all the tabs open from last week, so it's all helpful. Wonderful, Ken. I'd love to hear that. Yeah, I hear you on that. It would be like embarrassed for you to see my desktop right now because there are like so many things on it. It's a bit of a mess. Okay, so for anybody who did miss the last session, that does plan to either maybe stay and try to catch up, or is going to go and do this on their own time. I just want to make one thing really clear about your workbook. So in the workbook, I'm just going to show you this now on my screen. You'll see, sorry folks, I'm really I caught a cold over the weekend, so if I'm really stuffy and cough a lot, I apologize. But when you go through your workbook, you'll see some links to buttons that look like this. And each of these are actual bots that was custom built for that specific exercise. And when you click on it, it will open that bot in ChatGPT. You can use your free version of ChatGPT to chat, but you may run into a limit of how many you could do per day. So if you hit that limit, you'll have to kind of pause for 5 hours and come back to some of these exercises. But for anybody with a paid account, you won't hit that limit. You shouldn't have an issue. But you can see each of these is actually a different bot. And one thing that happened the first time I ran this workshop is people didn't realize they were all different. And so they tried to kind of continue the conversation with the one bot, but that's not going to work well. You really want to open up each one individually because each bot is custom built to help you with that specific exercise. Yeah, Rodney, it is absolutely worth it to have a paid account. There's a few things that I use on a monthly basis where I never feel that pang of like frustration when you have to renew your subscription, and ChatGPT is one of those things. I also really love it's a new tool I use called Whisper, and it allows you to dictate, and it actually is actually really good. So you can just speak into your phone, speak into your computer, and you can write a lot faster that way. It's awesome for like replying to social media posts or emails. Love it. Okay, so let's just jump right in. We're going to answer the important question, which specific problems should you solve with your new offer? And as you learn from Painstorming, there are a lot of problems you could solve. So there are likely only, though, a few problems that you should solve with your new offer, at least to start. You do not have to build a solution that solves all of your customers' problems. That's likely impossible and also would lead to you to trying to create this like really big complex solution that may not be the right one. So as we talked about in the first workshop, the job that your customer is trying to get done, that might be universal, but the problems that they incur when they're trying to get that job done, those are often context dependent. And when you aren't clear with the specific problems you're best suited to solve, you might try to tackle too many problems, build some one size fits all solution, and never get really traction. So there's this old Russian proverb I love. It says, if you chase two rabbits, you will not catch either one. And this is particularly hard for entrepreneurs like us who have lots of skills and want to solve a lot of different problems. So I'm just going to look at Sylvia has a question. She said, is it a good idea to give the previous conversation in the bot or to a new one? Well, in this exercise, you will be using all new bots with the exception of going back and looking at the output from your Painstorming exercise. So I would say you don't have to worry about continuing in those old chats because we're using all new bots right now. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to not chase multiple rabbits because we have lots of ideas and lots of problems we want to solve. And oftentimes, when one thing gets really hard, we kind of convince ourselves, like, oh, this thing is hard. There's got to be an easier thing, right? Like maybe I'll pivot, maybe I'll change my business model, maybe I'll launch a new business altogether. But oftentimes, it's in focusing on one thing and really digging in to solve that problem. That's how it gets easier over time. So, Alex Hormozi, he learned this lesson the hard way. So back in the early days of Gym Launch, he had a customer acquisition agency for gym owners, and he decided to expand and not just help gym owners get new customers, but instead serve dentists and chiropractors too. And he was thinking, why not, right? This makes sense. Like after all, dentists and chiropractors, they also need to get more customers, and they could afford to spend more to acquire a customer than gym owners could. So they were maybe a more potential customer. But here's what happened. He learned that the problems that they had around that job of getting more customers they all looked really different. So it was actually easier for gym owners to get people into the gym, but it was really hard for them to retain those people, meaning that they constantly had to have a new crop of people coming into the gym to actually make their business model work. Meanwhile, getting people to switch dentists was really hard, but getting people to actually stay at the dentist that they were at, that part was a lot easier. The problem dentists had wasn't always in getting new customers, but it was also in getting the customers that they did, or the patients that they did have to show up for their appointments. So a lot of people would miss their dentist appointment, and that would cost the dentist money. And so their problem wasn't just about getting customers, but it was getting their current customers to actually show up. And chiropractors had different problems again. So they struggled to get new customers. And oftentimes they would get a client and they would only come in once for one service and they'd fix their problem and then they wouldn't come back again. So they needed to attract new customers who would also become recurring customers, maybe people who had particular types of ailments that would require more than one session. So again, three different types of businesses, all with the same job to done, trying to get new customers, but their problems related to the job were all very different in context of it. The specific story. Hi. So eventually, Alex went all in on gym owners, and he actually totally overhauled his business to help with solving their specific problems. So rather than flying out to each gym and recruiting new gym members one time, which didn't actually solve the problem for gym owners, right? They could get a bunch of new customers one time, but then they knew that those people wouldn't necessarily stay for that long, so they would always need to get new ones. So he switched his entire model to a licensing model, and every month his team would deliver proven ad creative and design new promotional offers for gyms, so they could consistently get new members in the door. So by understanding the job they were trying to get done, and really digging in and understanding the specific problems that target customer has, Gym Launch was able to be really successful. And it was super successful. They ended up selling it for more than $50 million. So, how do you decide which problems you want to solve? Well, there's a simple rule of thumb that will save you a lot of heartache. You want to focus on the problems people already know they have. So sometimes people may not realize that they have a problem you solve, but they're actually feeling symptoms of that problem, similar to I'm feeling symptoms of my cold right now. And they may not actually be interested in solutions to the root problem that they have because they don't actually realize that that's their problem. But they'll pay for painkiller solutions that relieve their symptoms. So I know this from painful trial and error. So I created my Clarity Call cheat sheets and my Golden Nugget review mining system to help people gather the insights that they needed to drive more sales. And these products weren't total flops, but you know what? They never took off the way that I really hoped it would. And after doing a bunch of my own research, I realized I'd been focused on the wrong problem. And this insight is actually what led me to create my painkiller messaging system. So I knew that a lot of online entrepreneurs, they were struggling to build their business because they weren't clear on who their best buyers were or why people bought solutions like theirs. That was their root problem. They lacked this clarity, and they lacked that clarity because they weren't doing buyer research, right? That was the solution. But a lot of people did not think that they had a research problem. They recognized the symptoms, but they actually thought their real problem was that their messaging wasn't working and that their sales were slow. And those were the symptoms of their root problem. So I created Painkiller to sell people on the problem that they actually knew that they had, which was weak messaging, and then deliver the solution they really needed, which was a fast and systematic way to gather buyer research. And it worked. So Painkiller has massively outperformed my other research only focused products. And that's because it solves the problem that my target audience already knows they have. Oh, Candace, that's nice to hear. So, this is what I call the Trojan horse technique. You want to sell people the solution to the problem that they want to solve, which in some cases is the symptom, and then you want to deliver the solution they actually need. So this is smart, right? And to be clear, this is not about misrepresenting what you do, and you don't need to sell some big promise that you can't actually deliver on. The goal here is to sell a solution to the problem your target buyer knows they have, and then solve the root problem that's actually keeping them stuck. So, how do you decide which problems to solve? There's a simple rule of thumb that will save you a whole lot of heartache, and that is to focus on the problems they already know they have. Okay, so back to the question at hand. Which ones should you solve with your new offer? There is this old saying in business that's very true. More businesses die from indigestion than from starvation. Creative entrepreneurs, we try to do too much. We try to solve too many problems. We create too many solutions, and this burns us out and it confuses our customers. So you don't need to solve all of their problems with one offer, or create a solution for every problem they have. That's likely impossible anyway. But if you can solve the right problems for the right people at the right time, you can build a massively valuable solution. So ask yourself which problems really make you mad about, and because the conventional wisdom that people give around those problems, it doesn't work for a lot of people. So this is often a generally a good indication of a problem where you can bring a unique point of view that inspires a differentiated solution. So think about what's out there today that actually makes you mad because you know that that conventional wisdom doesn't work for people. That can often lead to a really innovative and differentiated solution. So you could create a multi-pronged solution that solves a bunch of interconnected problems. So that's what Alex eventually did with Gym Launch. They started off with focusing on running ads and promotional campaigns, and then they eventually help those gyms to actually become better at sales and to sell them vitamins. That happened over time, though. You could solve a very narrow problem with a very narrow solution, like we talked about in our first workshop with Cal AI, that app that allows you to click a picture of your food and it calculates the calories. Or you could create an offer that is helpful for to get potential customers to kind of buy in, trust you, solve kind of like one small problem, and then guide them towards maybe a bigger way of working with you. So that could mean putting together kind of a suite of products that work together. So Russell Brunson calls this a value ladder. Each solution is basically designed to solve a specific problem, delight that customer, earn their trust, solve one of their problems, and then naturally guide them towards the next offer in your set. This is a more complex thing. For many of you, you may not need to start here. This is probably where you'll end up maybe eventually, but not necessarily where you start. So when I created our first workshop, I created this workshop as a primer for our painkiller messaging system. So it's really impossible to nail your product messaging if you haven't built a product that solves a real problem. And I found that I could help people to really make sure they were solving the right problem, creating a solution people wanted with a workshop like Offer Breakthrough that would then naturally guide them towards needing to figure out their messaging and copy and with a solution like Painkiller. So at the end of the day, once you have your offer idea, you should pre-sell it before you build it to make sure you're on the right track. So again, the question is, which problem should you solve? Sparky already helped you come up with a whole slew of problems in our last session, and now you need to decide which ones you want to focus on. So you're going to audit your problem list from our previous exercise while thinking about your unique skills, interests, and business goals. So you're going to handpick maybe like 1 to 5 problems that are going to inspire the solution that you work on today. You might decide to focus on a few overarching problems that are shared by all 3 potential buyers, the ones we identified last time. Or maybe you'll zero in on like a hyper specific problem that one very specific segment has. So I actually completed this exercise when I was coming up with the concept for this workshop. And so I've kind of narrowed it down to these were the problems I was interested in. And then this workshop is when I narrowed down and I decided this is the one I'm really going to focus on. Like people can't find time to work on their new offer because client work or their core business always comes first. I was like, that's a real pain point for people. I think that I know those people's pains. I've been there. I'm going to create a really fast workshop, then give them all of these bots to help them do this work, get out of their own head and do it fast because that's, I think, what people need. They don't need a 6-month course or like community. They need to be able to do this fast because they're focused on the client work instead of their own business. So that's how it worked for me. Now it's time for you to decide what problems you want to focus on. So again, audit your list of problems from the brainstorming exercise. Cherry pick 1 to 5 of those problems that you want to focus on with your new offer. As you're looking at the problems, these are the kind of questions you want to ask yourself. What problems do buyers already know they have? What problems align with your skills and interests? What existing resources or assets might you be able to leverage? Maybe you don't have to start from scratch with this. What problems have you already solved for your clients or customers in the past? What problems are poorly solved by existing solutions in your market? What problems align with your broader business strategy? And what problems, if solved well, can create a profitable domino effect in your business, right? So something that if I can solve this problem for my clients, well, that's going to get them ready for this other thing that I do, or that's going to help them to want to buy into this more expensive offering with me. So think about that. You're going to have 10 minutes to narrow it down to 5 problems. Any questions before we get started? I see one from Bradley. Is there any nuance to thinking about this for a brick and mortar business versus an online based business? I would say that's a great question. I would say it depends. For a brick and mortar business, you might go a bit broader with the problems you choose to focus on because you probably sell a number of different products. So, if your store, let's say hypothetically, you have like a fishing goods store, right? You're probably going to go broader with the problems that you want to focus on versus going super narrow because super narrow would only allow you to sell a small portion of your industry. So, that's probably how it's different for an online based business where the cost of a new product is often like the time you spend creating it. You can usually go more narrow and kind of sell one thing over and over. Whereas with a lot of brick and mortar stores, part of the value you create for customers is having a variety or is having options. Does that answer your question, Brad? Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start the timer for 10 minutes and y'all choose some problems. Matt's asking in the worksheet, what should we capture in step one versus step two? So in step one, it's basically like give yourself a long list because you might have already gotten that long list that you selected from the painkiller exercise. And then in step two is where you're going to narrow it down. So in step one, you might be like, these are my top 10, and then you're going to force yourself to make some choices and really narrow it down. Now, if you end up going after like six versus five, that's not the end of the world, but really think about like, I can't solve all the problems for my customers. What are the more narrow problems I want to solve? All right, timer starting now. Yo, all right. So we are done. Were you able to narrow it down? Did you get to kind of 1 to 5 that you want to focus on? I'm seeing Laura said she just to wonder future time if the questions could be numbered. I changed my workbook so it'll be easier to refer to. Yes, we can absolutely do that. We can change and number the questions. Eddie says got it down to 4. Tamara got it down. Matt got it down. Awesome. So it's hard, right? One of the things that is really easy to do is add things on. But real beauty in products and solutions often comes from simplicity. Let me tell you, it's a lot easier to add things on than to subtract them. And I have learned that myself the hard way. And then you end up like trying to do too many things. And I have this like lesson I put in my mind, which is always like every bullet point in your kind of like planning document for a product or like a promotion, it's so easy to write a bullet point that describes, and we're going to do this, or we're going to have this feature. Getting that thing into the hands of customers or actually created is so much harder than writing the bullet. So make every bullet count. Okay. Now it's time to answer another big question. Which specific market will you target? So in this exercise, you're going to refine your target market. So as I've said before, people don't buy things because of who they are. They buy things because they have specific painful problems that they want to solve. And serving a super narrow segment will not help you if you're not solving the right problems for those people. So people who share common traits often share specific problems. And focusing on a specific segment, it has 2 really big benefits. So benefit number 1 is specificity inspires really profitable product differentiation. So it's much easier to figure out how to build a solution that people want to pay a premium for when your solution is truly different than other options that they've considered or tried. So as you witnessed when you did the brainstorming exercises, different market segments experience different problems related to getting the same job done. So targeting a specific segment allows you to escape the comparison trap and give them something that they truly can't get anywhere else. And there's another big benefit. It's way easier to market to a specific segment and often cheaper too, because you can go exactly where those people are. You can use language that makes them really clear that you're creating this thing for them. And rather than trying to fish in the whole ocean, it feels more like you're fishing in a bucket. And when people believe that your solution is specifically for people like them, they are more trusting of it, which means that converting people is easier. So that's really important. I'm just going to drop a link again for Vanessa to the workbook. Here you go, Vanessa. You'll have to make a copy of that to save it to your own Google Drive. Okay, so let's discuss how to refine your target market. There are 2 ways that you can approach this exercise. So you can target people who share specific traits. So that could be attributes that they have, like their job title, the industry that they work in, their role, or their demographics. And you can also target people who share specific triggers. So in this case, you want to target a specific moment. This is less about who they are, and it's more about when they might need a solution like yours. So I'm going to explore what trait-based targeting might look like. So a great example of this was House of Wise, which was originally founded by my friend Amanda Goetz. So House of Wise sells CBD gummies, and there is so much competition in the CBD space. So CBD products have risen in popularity. And if you look at the way a lot of people market them, they'll say, hey, you can use my CBD oil or my CBD gummies, and it helps with all of these things, right? Now, the question of whether this is all scientifically accurate, not necessarily, I don't know, but there's lots and lots of benefits you can get from CBD. And House of Wise did something very smart, though, when they came up with their gummies that helped them to stand out. First, they targeted very specific jobs. So rather than making one CBD gummy and saying, hey, you can use this for all these different things, they actually made individual gummies and blended them with other kind of vitamins or nootropics and things to specifically support these 3 jobs. Sleep gummies, stress gummies, and sex gummies. It would help you to kind of set the mood. And they targeted people who shared common traits. Their targets were ambitious career women juggling work with being a mom, which is super smart, right? Because they could speak directly to this audience and present their gummies as solutions that this target audience really had. So they didn't ever specifically come out in their advertising and say these CBD gummies are only for career moms. Like anybody can buy them. That wasn't something that they necessarily said, but they didn't have to because it was really clear from the way that they marketed the product that burnt out moms were their target market. So another solution is that you can target specific trigger events. So again, a trigger event is something that happens in someone's life or business that creates urgency and motivates them to take action. So a trigger event can be something that's situational. Maybe it's like they lost a big customer or team member. It could be getting engaged, raising venture capital. These are all trigger events. They can be physical, things like being cold or hungry or experiencing pain. Those are another type of trigger event. They can be social, like feeling embarrassed in a meeting, getting negative feedback, seeing a competitor, bragging about their big win. Or they can be internal or emotional, things like feeling overwhelmed, bored, anxious. So let's look at an example you can probably all relate to. You are all here, right? And you're not here because you just woke up one day and said, I need to attend a workshop with Caitlin. That is not how demand works. Chances are something happened in your life that actually triggered you to want to attend. So it could be that you hit a revenue plateau in your business, right? So you were feeling a bit stuck. It felt like you wanted to earn more. You didn't want to build a big team. You didn't want to work more hours, but yet you felt stuck. Is that familiar with anybody? Maybe you started working on your 10th idea for a new product and got stuck in analysis paralysis, right? Maybe you spent weeks or months building a new offer, launched it, and it didn't sell like you hoped it would. Or maybe you saw a post on social media about how AI is going to disrupt your whole industry and you're like, oh crap, I should probably launch a new offer. Or maybe you had to fire a team member who couldn't produce the work to your standards, leaving you overwhelmed, having to do everything on your own again. So these are all particular like trigger events that could have happened that led you to joining this workshop. Are any of these familiar to anyone? So knowing the specific trigger event that brought you here can help me inspire a more targeted offer. So when I first launched this workshop the first time back in May, I think, I used a simple Google Doc sales letter to sell it. And the very first lines in that Google Doc were, have you hit a revenue ceiling in your business? Right? And I was like, I know that a lot of people that are going to want to come to a workshop like this, that's going to be where they're at. They've hit this revenue ceiling. They can't get to the next level. They need a new solution. So, understanding when somebody might be the right work for this workshop, the right fit for this workshop, led to nearly 400 people attending our very first one. So pretty cool. Um, so here's another, let's do a pop quiz. What might trigger someone to hire a personal trainer? What would be a trigger event that makes somebody go, hey, I'm going to hire a personal trainer? Getting married, great answer. Looking fat in the mirror, that is a trigger that I deal with almost daily. Breakup, Vlad, I like it. Ex's wedding, all of these are so good. So, a personal trainer might look at their clients and go, you know what? The people who come to me really motivated, the people who actually follow my plan and get the work done and are willing to pay a premium price. Maybe they're coming through a painful breakup or a divorce. That's a common trigger event, right? And that could inspire them to create an offer, something like this one, a getting your revenge body challenge, right? So you could create a group fitness challenge and a community for people who have recently gone through a breakup. These heartbroken singles, they get emotional support to get in shape. They could rebuild their confidence. They could, and they were dealing with a heartache and you could help them, right? You could come up with personalized meal plans for them using AI. You could have a trainer that could or even like relationship coaches or stylists to help them kind of like get their swagger back. You could create such a unique solution that stood out and was so different than the typical lose weight challenge because you're focused on a very specific trigger event. So this offer, I don't think that this thing exists yet, but it should exist because it's really cool. And so you can see how like focusing on a specific trigger could inspire a hyper targeted solution that stands out in like a sea of weight loss programs and products. And I did identifying trigger events, it can help you with your marketing too, right? So a well-known brand that does this really well is Snickers. What might trigger someone to buy a Snickers bar? Show your answers in the comments. Why might somebody buy a Snickers bar? So, Snickers has done a pretty good job over decades of like telling us what this is, right? The Munchies, I love that one. Actually, O. Henry came out with a chocolate bar after they legalized cannabis in Canada called the 425 bar. And it was so smart because it was specifically for people who had just smoked a joint at 420 and now had the munchies. I was like, Perfect. So yeah, this stuff can help you with marketing too, right? So Snickers is the number one candy bar in the world for a reason. Smart targeting. Their iconic You're Not You and You're Hungry campaign targets a universal problem. That is that when you're hungry, you can often make mistakes, do dumb things, and maybe get judged by your peers. So that moment that you feel hungry but you don't have enough time to actually eat a real meal, that's when Snickers is your best option. Because unlike some of those other candy bars that are out there, Snickers is packed with peanuts. It feels more satiating, like a real meal, and they target a very specific trigger event. And this has led them to be the number one candy bar in the world for decades. So you can also target people who share common traits and common trigger events. So, for instance, Clerky is a service specifically for tech startups that helps them to get legal documents at specific trigger moments. So, when they're incorporating their business, when they're fundraising, when they're setting up an employee stock option, they target a specific type of customer with shared traits, and they target those specific moments when they're going to need legal paperwork. So, this is clever and it helped Clerky to grow to $3 million a year in recurring revenue in just 2 years. So I want to make an important caveat here. You do not need to go super narrow with the demographic or firmographic stuff. So you can work with different types of people who all experience the same common problem. But going super narrow is often really smart because it helps you with your marketing and allows you to design a solution that feels more custom fit to them. And remember, people will pay more for stuff that feels like it's right just for them. So now you're going to work on refining your target market. And as usual, Sparky is here to help you brainstorm. You can start with potential customer segments that you identified in the exercise last time. And you're going to it'll ask you some questions to add more details and help you to narrow it down to potentially choosing, do I want to go after people with shared traits, people with shared triggers, or maybe both? So ask yourself, is there a segment that has a specific problem you want to solve? What common traits might your best fit buyers share? Are there common trigger events that you could target? Do you already have unique access to some specific type of market? And this is important because, you know, I could create a solution for aerospace like engineers, but I don't know any aerospace engineers. How am I going to get in front of aerospace engineers? So sometimes the asking like, do I have unique access to a specific market is really clever. And do you already have credibility with a specific market? Maybe you've built a business like they're building. Maybe you've solved a problem that they want to solve. So what credibility do you have? That could inspire this too. All right. So before I start the timer, you're going to have 8 minutes for this exercise. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm starting the timer now. All right, y'all. We're moving on to the most exciting exercise of the whole workshop. But before we do, now that you're clear on the problems that you have want to solve and you've chosen a target market, we're able to start thinking about offer design. And this focus is going to make everything else you do from here so much more effective and easier to figure out. Before we jump on, did people have a good, were you able to narrow it down? Did you find that target market that you want to go after? Maybe the one who shares common traits or maybe common triggers or both. Shout it out in the chat and let us know. You don't have to tell us who you're targeting. You can keep that close to the chest, but share if you're feeling like you have clarity on that next piece. So we're going to do some rapid offer exploration now. And the goal again is for you to walk away with an offer idea you are excited to test and really feeling good about. So many entrepreneurs struggle with this. They get stuck in kind of like endless brainstorming without taking action. They focus on what they want to build rather than what people want to buy. And they jump into designing solutions and waste a lot of time potentially building the wrong thing. But you are different. You've done a bunch of hard work to actually identify real problems with solving, and now it's time to transform them into pain-killing offers that sell. So, how do you design a painkiller offer? So, I've spent just like an ungodly amount of time thinking about this, and I have studied some of the world's top product and positioning experts. So, people like Steve Jobs, Clayton Christensen, who came up with Jobs to be Done, Rory Sutherland, one of my favorite marketers ever, Alex Hormozi, April Dunford, all of these people have spent a lot of time thinking about how to create painkiller offers. And from all of them, I've kind of narrowed it down into these five things that you need to have for to have a painkiller offer. So it needs to solve a sharp pain, right, for the customer, possibly a fire problem, like we identified in the last workshop. It should be targeted and context specific. So it offers a specific solution for people in a specific circumstance, like Snickers does, like House of Wise does with their CBD gummies. It delivers a dream outcome, right? The customer understands and deeply desires the value that your product can create. It feels effortless, right? Ideally, getting a big win with minimal effort, or it makes the work that has to get done feel gratifying or playful. So it doesn't feel like it's a lot of work to get the value. And it feels fresh yet familiar. So people get it. They see how it's different from other solutions they've considered or tried that didn't work. And if you can sell an offer that combines all of these elements and that is built to be both scalable and profitable for you, you're going to get rich. Yes, April Dunford is she's a brilliant marketer based here in Canada, and she specializes very niche. She's focused on helping tech companies to figure out their position, often enterprise tech companies. But she wrote a book that any business should read, and it's called Obviously Awesome, and it's all about positioning. So even though her focus is tech companies, she's a friend of mine. She gets paid like $70,000 to go and meet with tech companies for 3 days to help them figure out their positioning. She's got a bang in business. But she's genius, and if you want to learn about positioning, learn from April. So there are many different ways to solve problems, right? So that's what's exciting for creative people like us. Now it's time for us to get to be creative. There are so many different ways you can solve a problem. And some solutions are logical and others are psychological. So logical solutions to problems often mean that you make something faster, cheaper, more effective, or you help them to get the outcome with less effort. These are logical solutions, and logical solutions can work great. Um, Oh, if it were me, I would definitely rather eat dinner with April. I actually have gotten to eat dinner with April, and she's just as funny and like as like self-deprecating as you see her. If you've ever seen her one of her talks, she's such an incredible speaker. She's like that in real life. She's the exact same off stage. But so a logical solution to a problem could be something like Ozempic. We shared this example last time, right? People struggle to lose weight because they hate being hungry all the time or they feel really tempted by their favorite foods. So a logical solution is to reduce that hunger and reduce food cravings, right? That's a logical solution. So knowing your target buyer's problems can help you design products that solve those problems logically. But here's the thing. Logical problems solving problems logically can sometimes be really competitive. So In the case of this workshop, I made this workshop very short by design. So I spent like 7 weeks the first time we created this workshop on building kind of the workshop, coming up with these GPTs to allow you to go and execute this quickly. And I wanted to be able to help you do work that could take weeks, sometimes months for some of us, because we just get so stuck in our head. I want you to be able to do it in minutes. So that was a logical solution to a problem. And I hope that you agree that it's worth it. But the tricky thing is that everyone else is often trying to do the logical thing, right? Everyone tries to build solutions that are faster and cheaper and more effective. Who wouldn't? And in crowded markets with lots of competition, trying to win with purely logical solutions is hard. So, psychological solutions to problems can be even better than logical ones. And this idea comes from Rory Sutherland in his book Alchemy, which you should absolutely read if you haven't. But he tells this great story in the book about a psychological solution to a very annoying problem. So, slow elevators, right? Hotel guests were complaining that there were these really slow elevators, and engineers proposed a expensive and logical solution, which is let's replace the motors or just add additional elevators so that the trip is faster. That's a logical solution. But a behavioral psychologist suggested something simpler and a lot cheaper. They installed mirrors on the window, the doors of the elevators. And now people would spend so much time kind of like checking themselves out, looking at themselves. They didn't notice how long the time was in the elevator. It made the painful experience of waiting feel like it went by shorter. So this is a psychological solution, and it was much more delightful and a lot cheaper than rebuilding the elevators. So I did something similar when designing Unignorable, the personal branding challenge that I ran with the team at Demand Curve. So I knew that many entrepreneurs wanted to build their personal brands. They knew building an audience was going to help them build their business. They knew that it was worth doing, but they couldn't commit to it. And their problem often wasn't that they didn't know what to do. Most of them already knew that they should be posting consistently, they should be engaging with their peers, they should be writing better hooks, they should choose topics and share ideas that they want to be known for. They knew all that. Their problem was actually mustering the motivation to do it because these were busy entrepreneurs with a million to-dos on their list, and creating content personally often got pushed to the very bottom of their list, especially when posting and hearing crickets on your post is so demoralizing. So I knew that the motivation was their big problem. So I asked myself an important question. I said, how can we make content creation more fun? People don't need a push to play their favorite video game or binge watch Netflix, right? So that's what we did. We ended up thinking we'll gamify the entire experience. So we made Unignorable a live group challenge, not a DIY course. We created weekly mini challenges with prizes so people could compete and win. We made short and funny instructional videos that we hoped people actually enjoyed watching. And we matched people with a squad of people to share ideas with people who become their early cheerleaders on their posts. So no more just posting and feeling demoralized when nobody saw it. And we introduced my favorite part in the last one, which was the Top Hooker Challenge, which is this fun game where people could actually earn points for helping each other rework their hooks. Because the hook for your post is so very important. It's often hard to edit our own writing because we're kind of too close to it. So this allowed people to help each other edit their hooks, become better writers themselves, and earn points for doing it for a big prize. And everybody, let me tell you, they love telling their spouses that they were that week's top hooker. So, this is a way to create a psychological solution to the problem that we saw of actually mustering that motivation. So our psychological solution, it worked well for a lot of our alumni. So many Unignorable alumni went on to build personal brands that built their business. And you might recognize many of these smart folks who are ones who went through the original Unignorable. So the big lesson with these examples is that once you're clear on the real problem you're solving, designing solutions becomes easier. So we're going to do a bit of a quick challenge here, and I want to get you thinking differently about solutions. So I want you to imagine that you own a popular restaurant and you have the best brunch in town. Business is booming, but every weekend you have a line around the block and customers keep complaining about how long they need to wait. Customers say that it feels so long and you want to brainstorm solutions to make the wait be better, right? So logical solutions are things like fixing the root problem with time, money, or engineering. And psychological solutions are changing how people might perceive the experience or the wait. So First off, what are some logical solutions? I love that you're already getting into these psychological ones. You guys are so good. What are some logical solutions? I'm going to set a timer. You're going to have 1 minute. If you wanted to solve this problem with logical solutions, what might that be? So again, remember the logical solutions are often about making things faster, cheaper, easier. Reservations only. This is a good one. Chairs to sit on, more tables and staff, right? Those are taking orders, expand to add more tables. These are very good. These are all these logical solutions, right? So now you already started doing it before. What are some of the psychological solutions, right? What are ways that you might be able to get people to make the wait less painful if you aren't going to go with the logical ones? Music, entertainment in the line, cold and warm drinks, a band outside. Y'all are so good. Puppies, yes. Why do we not always have puppies whenever we have to wait? Reward who waits the longest. Ooh, I like that. An outdoor bar, give them novels to read while they're in line, sidewalk trivia. All of these are so good. And like so as you can see, when you start looking at a problem and you decide, I'm going to take off my logical cap, or maybe we've already tried solving the problem logically. Let's actually look at some psychological solutions. That's when you can come up with some really interesting solutions that your competitors probably aren't thinking about. Short comedy clips playing outside. These are so good. Okay. So as you design your offer, think both logical and psychological solutions, because sometimes your differentiator might be solving a common problem with a really unique solution. So, as you explore ideas, remember what we talked about last time. There are many ways to scale a business, and this is especially true now in the age of AI. So, I see too many smart people think that the only way to scale their business is if they sell an online course or they start a paid community or something like that. And that can be a really great option, but it's certainly not the only option. So, both of those business models typically only work well after you spend a lot of time building trust with your audience. And that means that if you don't have an audience today, that's probably not the best way to scale your business. So you probably want to sell a premium offer, something that's like a high ticket thing. That could be something that you charge a lot for one time, or it could be something that generates recurring revenue. And if you can do both, even better. So like I said, you probably want to sell a high ticket offer. You could also build a low cost, high value solution. Maybe that is a bridge to your main thing. So if you're already selling something that's more of like a premium offer, maybe what your problem is getting people to commit to that thing. So maybe your idea would be to build a lower cost thing that's valuable, solves a specific problem for your target customer, and acts as a bridge to your next thing. So the way I see it, there are three different types of scalable offers. There are productized services, there are high ticket hybrids, and there are low cost, high value things. So let me kind of explain what these are. So, a productized service is a pre-packaged, standardized service with a fixed scope, price, and delivery process sold like a product to simplify fulfillment and scale. So, unlike a fully custom service that is going to vary by client from client, or a DIY solution like an online course, software, or group program, a productized service is still done for you. So one of my favorite examples of a productized service is Drybar. Has anybody heard of Drybar? Drybar is a hair salon that exclusively offers blowouts. So for the guys in the room, a blowout means getting your hair styled. And unlike traditional hair salons, Drybar doesn't do cuts, colors. They don't even wash your hair. Their clients can book an appointment or walk in off the street and they choose a hairstyle from a list of options and they're done. They're walking out in under 30 minutes. So it solves a very specific problem, looking fabulous in record time without the muss and fuss that would come with a normal, typical salon visit. And today, Drybar has over 176 locations in the US and generates over $1 billion in revenue. So this is a great example of a productized service, and there's a lot of money in blowouts. WP Speedfix is another option. So they help small businesses with WordPress websites increase their speed and reduce bounce rates and improve SEO rankings. So it's a done for you service. They deliver results within 48 hours and they offer a monthly subscription to ensure sites stay fast. So they get you that one time with the service, which is typically between $500 and $1,000 a one-time fee, and then you can optionally add on $100 a month service to have them keep your site fast. And it's estimated that WP Engine generates over 50K a month with this simple service, right? Very specific problem. Very specific trigger event. My website is slow and I know I'm losing customers and a service that scales. Okay, so let's explore a different type of offer. So there's also high ticket hybrids. So a high ticket hybrid offer is a premium priced program that combines elements like coaching, educational content like courses, a community, maybe digital products, and done for you services to deliver greater value and results in a scalable format. So the idea here is that you can combine kind of like your DIY offers with some other things that might be more done for you or done with you. And that's why it's called a hybrid, because it's not just a course, it's not just a service business, it might be a combination. And this comes from kind of the old school make money on the internet people, but generally a high ticket hybrid means that your thing's going to cost over $3,000. But it's not uncommon to see high ticket hybrid programs running five figures or more. And with the emergence of AI tools, I don't think these offers necessarily have to be high ticket because there's probably ways you can create a lot of value for your customers without necessarily charging $3,000 a month or like, $3,000 total. You can likely charge less and still create a lot of value. By using some kind of like more scalable software solutions. So Chief is a great example of a high ticket hybrid. So it was a community for senior women entrepreneurs. They got access to the peer-to-peer mentorship. They got executive coaching in a small group. They got to attend live and online events and had an online community. And their members would pay $5,600 a year and get to attend these events and access member-only clubhouses in select cities. So it's kind of a combination of things. And today it's worth $1.1 billion. And Vendiv, the company that I started with a similar concept, is dead. But that you learned about that last time. Another hybrid offer that's really great is My Body Tutor. So, My Body Tutor is a weight loss coaching and education program. So, members get matched with a weight loss coach who provides daily accountability via text messaging. They create a workout and diet plan, and they offer weekly or even daily calls for support. And their membership also includes a custom app and a private podcast and newsletter with daily tips. And it costs between $3.99 and $8.99 a month to be a client. And so it's not actually that expensive, not like $3,000 or $10,000. But like I said, it doesn't always have to be. And they have done, I think last year or this year, they're subject to do $6 million a year in sales. So yes, it's $399 per month, Dominic, not $3.99. But again, not when I say high ticket, a lot of people assume, oh, it's got to be $5,000, $50,000. Not necessarily. This is a good example of a hybrid offer where you get some things that scale really well, like, the text message and the educational content, and some things that feel more personalized, like the one-to-one text messages. Okay, so what is a low cost, high value offer? So this could be a standalone offer or be used as a trust builder to bridge to your other products and services. For many of you, that's going to be the way to go. You probably don't want to build a low cost offer that you only sell one time. So, for instance, if you create like a $150 course, that likely wouldn't bring you in a lot of ROI unless you already have a really large audience to sell it to or plan to use it as a stepping stone to your main offer. So remember, we learned these lessons from last time. It would take Justin Welsh 20,000 people to buy his online course at 150 bucks one time for him to make $3 million. Whereas Sahil Bloom, who is a partner in a ghostwriting agency, he would only need 50 clients to commit to a 1 year subscription for them to be able to generate $3 million. So for a lot of folks, that low ticket is often not going to be sustainable as a standalone product. It can be a good way, though, to get some value for your ideal clients that then make them want to work with you on some of the other things you do. So if your business generally, and when I say lower cost, if your business generally sells five or six figure solutions, then low cost, high value in your case might be something that you deliver for only 2,500. Like 2,500 is obviously a lot less than, 100,000. So it really depends a bit on your business, but generally it'll be kind of something that's significantly less than your core offer and is a great stepping stone, solves a specific problem for your customer, gets them interested in your main thing. So some great examples of a low cost, high value offer is Peter McKinnon's Lightroom presets. So, oh, am I back? I'm not sure how long you lost me for, but I'm back. Okay, awesome. So Peter's a photographer and he's built a massive following on YouTube of nearly 6 million people. And he teaches them how to shoot and edit videos. And he teaches for free. And most of his revenue comes from brand partnerships, from working with clients to actually do photography, and from YouTube payouts. But he has this other kind of like lower ticket offer, which is his Lightroom presets. And they're these digital downloads that allow other photographers to instantly apply the same style that he's teaching in his video to their own photos in Adobe Lightroom. So these range between $20 and $150. And again, Peter's able to make a decent income with these products because he already has a massive audience and because he's also looking at this as secondary revenue from his brand partnerships and actual client work. Ken asked, where do monthly subscriptions fall into this type of offering? I think that they probably are often going to be more on the kind of high ticket, the like the higher ticket side of things, but it might not be recurring. So it's a higher ticket because the assumption is they're going to stay with you month over month, right? So even though you're not getting your $3,000 from your client all at once, maybe you're getting it from them over the course of a year. So that's, I'd say that they fall more into that high ticket. Okay, so this workshop's another example of a low cost, high value offer. So I created this as a possible stepping stone to a painkiller messaging workshop and other higher ticket things that we're working on. And I noticed that a lot of people who had bought painkiller before were actually, they didn't have a product that they were struggling to get customers for. Their struggle was that they were actually in the process of launching something new and wanted to figure out their messaging. So I knew that if I could come to them with a solution to their specific current problem, which is designing a new offer, then it would, and if I could get them value in that, then it would be much easier for me to encourage them to check out Painkiller. And it's working. So the first time I ran this workshop, 18% of people who attended the first workshop ended up also investing in Painkiller. So when you have a sense of what it is you're trying to make, and if the goal is to make it a stepping stone to your bigger thing, that can be a really good solution. But I just want to be clear that for a lot of folks, if you don't have a volume of customers, then selling a low ticket thing might not bring you enough revenue to make it sustainable. So remember, any business can be scalable. There's like all this kind of like BS out there around like, oh, there's only certain types of businesses that are scalable, but not every scalable model will be profitable for you. So I want you to choose the model that makes sense for where you're at in your business today. So it's time to start brainstorming offer ideas. That is the fun part. And this is a two-part exercise. So throughout this workshop, you've been gathering the building blocks of your offer. So you've answered a whole bunch of important questions. You know your original big idea, right? You know what you came in here thinking you might do. You know what your underlying goal is and why you're building something new in the first place. You know what your customer's job to be done is. You know what problems people experience when trying to get the job done. And you know who your target market is, whether you're targeting people who share specific traits or specific trigger events. Now, Sparky is going to be able to help you to take these building blocks and generate ideas using them. There's just a few things that I want that he should know to make sure that this aligns with your business. So if you have any special skills or assets to leverage in your business, Sparky's going to ask you and you're going to let him know. So this is going to help him with brainstorming ideas. So maybe you're a total AI or Notion nerd. This could help inspire a unique solution for you. Or maybe you're an excellent designer or strategist. Or maybe you already have a list of past clients or an audience to sell your offer to. Letting him know about these special skills or assets in advance is going to help him to brainstorm more contextually relevant ideas. And if you have any constraints to consider, you also want to let Sparky know. So for instance, maybe you need to design a solution that complements your current services. You don't want something that's kind of just out there completely new. Or maybe you only have 3 hours a week to commit to your new thing. Maybe you're doing this on the side of a full-time job or something like that. Let him know that too, as that will help with generating ideas. So sharing your constraints is going to help him to really dial in his answers. So you can lean on Sparky for inspiration, but I don't want you to just blindly follow his suggestions. So use this as a jumping off point for your own creativity and use what we talked about today with the logical and psychological solutions to really think through your own offers. What you do with Sparky is a jumping off point, but it's not probably going to be your final version of your offer. So with this, you want to ask yourself as you're brainstorming ideas, like, does this offer solve a sharp pain? Is the solution targeted and context specific? Does it feel effortless to clients, or does it make them feel, does it make the work feel gratifying or playful, like we tried to do with Unignorable? Does this offer feel fresh yet familiar? Will people understand it? And will this offer deliver a dream outcome for my clients? You're going to write a quick and dirty pitch for your offer, and this is going to help you to just clarify that idea by writing it down. So, do we have any questions before we jump into this exercise? You'll have 25 minutes to work on this one. Chantal asks, what if the problem I'm trying to solve that I've been workshopping here is B2C, and my current offerings are all B2B? Which offer model would you suggest, or anything else to consider that you've already shared? I'd say the three models, the productized service, the high ticket hybrid, and the low ticket high value. I think I gave examples that were B2B and B2C for all three of those. So you can certainly use any of them. Truly, it comes down to what is the problem you're looking to solve. Like we talked about the revenge body workout, that would probably be fall into the high ticket hybrid space, and that was a great B2C one. But you can see how the ideas that they'd have around like what's included in that offer would be so specific because of the problem that they're solving. This idea that these people are recently single and wanting to get their revenge body. They could come up with inclusions for that type of program that no other weight loss program would ever probably think about, because they are not solving that same problem. So I hope that that answers the question. Are we still on section 7? I have your current bot. No, we're moving. I think we're moving on to 8 now. Yeah, we're on this step 8, the better big idea. And there's a bot here to help you with all of this brainstorming. You'll basically feed in your answers from other places in your workbook to help with this initial brainstorming. All right, so I'm going to start the timer now, y'all. Go and come up with some offer ideas. All right, y'all, time is up. How did it go? So, again, many of you that came to both parts of the workshop, you started with kind of a idea at the beginning, something that you had been thinking about that you felt okay, but you wanted to explore it further. And now, in just a matter of like 4 hours, you have a more refined idea, or maybe for some of you, a completely brand new idea, something you didn't come in here thinking about. So, you don't have to share your big ideas with the group since I know you probably want to keep that secret. But let's do a one word check in. How do you feel about your new or revamped offer idea? In one word, illuminating, excited. These are great words. Invigorated, awesome, y'all. Nervous. I'm always nervous when I have a new idea because I know that the ideas are easy, but the execution's hard. So you want to make sure you're building the right thing. Wealthy. I love it. Pumped. Unexpected. Okay, cool. So maybe something new came out of these sessions that led you to a place where you hadn't been before. Fernando said all over. Excited and really got me thinking. That's awesome to hear, Anna. Confident, says Shannon. Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about the final step and the kind of like ideation process. So now you have the beginnings of a big idea that you're excited about. I want to save you from making that big mistake that I made that I shared with you last time. And as you know, I've made some really big mistakes. So I want you to validate that there's actually demand for your offer before you go out and start building it. So if you've been in the online business world for more than 5 minutes, that you might have heard this before. You might have heard that you should launch an MVP or a minimal viable product to test your big idea. So an MVP is often described as like the simplest version of your product that delivers just enough core value to solve the problem and gather customer feedback. Now, this is pretty common advice in the tech world, and it's not bad advice sometimes, but it can actually lead people on the wrong path because today, building stuff can sometimes actually be the easier part. It's actually the selling part that's hard. And so here's the problem with an MVP. Once you've actually invested a whole bunch of time into building something, even something that's minimal, you might fall victim to sunk cost fallacy. So this is a psychological trap where the more time, money, and effort you invest into something, the harder it becomes to walk away from that thing, even if it's clearly not working. And your brain tricks you into thinking, I've already spent so much time on this, I can't quit now. So you keep pouring resources into the thing, trying to make it work, rather than cutting your losses and moving on to a better opportunity. So it sounds like Tamara has been guilty of this. I definitely have been guilty of this. And I know all about it because in my previous tech company, I invested years of my life and almost all of my savings and lived on credit cards building our MVP app. So I raised venture capital, built a team, we launched the product. And even when the signs were obvious that it wasn't working, I kept trying to salvage it because I was so invested in it. And I've watched countless students who sign up for Painkiller do the same thing. They spend months building something only to realize when they start actually doing market research and coming up with their messaging for their thing that they actually built the wrong thing. And I want to save you from making those painful, expensive mistakes. So I want you to pre-sell your offer before you build it. So this is the ultimate form of validation. It's one thing for people to say that they like your idea. It's entirely a different thing for them to actually pull out their credit card and pay you for it. So a great pre-selling success story comes from Sahil Levanier, which is the founder of Gumroad. And before actually writing a line of code for what he would eventually become Gumroad, he tweeted about his idea. He didn't have a large Twitter audience at the time, but he asked about who might pay up front for something like a solution like he was planning to build. He kind of mapped out what the vision was and how this would be a different solution than things that were out there. And guess what? He sold thousands of dollars in pre-orders before writing any code. Dominic says buyers are liars. The only thing you can trust is getting their actual money. Believe me, I've made that mistake. And I use this strategy too. So I learned the hard way with Vendiv about building something and then trying to find buyers. So in my past three things that I've launched, I've pre-sold all of them. We pre-sold Wallet Opening Words, we pre-sold Painkiller, we pre-sold Unignorable, netting multiple five figures each time before I actually went and started doing all the heavy lifting of creating it. So this is the power of pre-selling. It shows you that people are actually interested and want the thing that you're selling. So you don't need a massive social media following to pre-sell. And you definitely don't need to build out your entire kind of like early product to validate demand. But you do need a clear, painful problem to solve. Check, you guys have figured that out. A compelling vision for your solution and a way to make people say, yes, I want this. So, how do you get them to say yes and buy into your idea? Well, you need to nail your messaging. And this is especially critical when pre selling because asking somebody to buy primarily based on your promise or your framing of the problem and the solution. So to figure out your messaging, you want to start with research. You want to research to help understand the competitive landscape, to know how customers think about your and shop for solutions to solve their problems and that your product aims to solve. And it's asking how long it takes to pre-sell. It does depend. So with Unignorable, our initial pre-sell was that we created a Google Doc and we described what it was going to include. We kind of sat down and mapped out what we wanted the initial challenge to be, put it into Google Doc, promoted that to both of our audiences. I partnered with Demand Curve on that. And the pre-sale campaign was probably with both of our teams combined like a month of work, but actually creating the course curriculum and all the materials and setting things up was a lot more work than that. And we were lucky. So we did the pre-sale campaign and we had sold out. We limited the number of seats that were available in the pre-sale and we sold out within under an hour. And that gave us confidence. Okay, we're building the right thing. And the cool thing that happened is because our kind of like pre-sale sold out in just an hour, when we actually had our official launch first thing in the new year, we again limited the number of spots and we sold out in 6 minutes. So the pre-sale actually helped us create hype for the actual launch, but it also helped us to like validate people want this because if we wouldn't have sold out, if we wouldn't have had people put their hands up and say, yes, I want this, then we could have spent months creating it for people who didn't want it. Um, any tips for those of us who are slow to build out the material? Wendy, we'll talk about that in a second because I can certainly give you all some tips on that. We'll do a Q&A at the end and I can dive into that. So you want to start with research. You want to figure out your competitive landscape, how customers think about and shop for solutions like yours. You don't need to spend months doing research. There are plenty of scrappy ways to do customer research. So you can mine online reviews and forums for insights from your customers. You can analyze search data to see how people are actually shopping or for solutions like the one you plan to build. And you can just do a quick and dirty competitor analysis. So we actually just added a new competitive analysis GPT to Painkiller that makes the whole process really easy. So when you understand the buying landscape, you can figure out how to position your product strategically and craft your messaging so you can pre-sell your solution. Now, we're not going to be going really deep into messaging strategy today because that is a meaty topic and a separate topic from offer design. But if you want to go deeper in it, my Painkiller messaging system can help. So let's assume that you have figured out your messaging and you are ready to start pre-selling. There are several ways to pre-sell your offer before you build it. So you can reach out to existing clients and customers and pitch them directly, right? That's an easy way to do it. You don't have to build up the whole thing. Go to people who already trust you and say, I'm working on this thing. Describe what it is and see if they're interested. You can talk about the problem on social media and tease your solution and then DM people who are interested and seem like they might want to learn more. You can add a description of your new offer idea to your website with a buy button or a book a discovery call button, right? And then you can pitch people on your new offer when they book a discovery call. You could host a webinar about the problem that you plan to solve with your new offer and pitch your new thing at the end with a special founder member pricing. And you could announce your solution on social media or with your email list and include a special deal for people who want to get first dibs and who start a wait list. So we did this with this workshop. I began building the wait list more than a month before we launched it. And that's the right approach. And, it depends on your situation. If you don't have, we had a large email list we could reach out to. In some of your cases, the best option is actually just to reach out to existing clients or prospects for the thing that you were planning to build and talk to them about it and get their feedback and try to sell them on it. So the key to a successful pre-selling is creating excitement while also setting the right expectations. And the good news is when you're building a productized service or a group program like a membership, many of you might have that in mind, you can often pre-sell it and actually build it as you go. So your clients don't necessarily need to know that every element of it isn't created yet. And you don't need to like overpromise them, but it's okay to be transparent that this is your first version of something. So candidly, I'm in the process of doing this right now with Unignorable 2.0. So once I started sharing my offer idea on social media with the right messaging, I got a bunch of DMs from people being like, I'm interested in this offer. So we're going to start a pre-sale. We're going to basically accept 5 beta clients to start. And I have a pretty solid idea of what the deliverables are going to look like for those clients, but I haven't actually gotten into the nitty-gritty of designing everything yet. I'm not overthinking every detail. I want to pre-sell 5 clients on that new service, and it will validate demand for the offer. And then I'm going to design the experience as we go. So I'm not building everything in advance. I'm designing as we go. We don't have a website. I plan to just sell it with a simple Google Doc. So it honestly doesn't need to be that hard. And I'm going to give the people who come as part of the beta a great deal because people are often willing to participate in a beta when you tell them that they're going to get founding member pricing that they wouldn't get otherwise. So we are ready for our final exercise. So it's time to decide how you'll pre-sell your offer to validate demand. This is a straightforward exercise, but it does have high stakes. So creating an effective pre-selling campaign, it could save you months or weeks of work later. So ask yourself, who are the first 3 to 10 people maybe you could approach with your idea? What's the simplest version of your offer that you could pre-sell? And what's a reasonable timeline for delivery? And what price point might make it irresistible for early adopters, but still valuable for you? So you're going to have 4 minutes for this exercise. Does anybody have any questions before we start on this? Is painkiller, Michelle's asking, is painkiller effective for physical products as well as services? Absolutely. We actually give a lot of physical product examples for painkiller, but most of it was initially created with product-based businesses in mind. So that could be a productized service or people who are selling products like courses, physical products. That's who it was created for. Um, the recording will stop in 2 minutes and you can re-invite and continue recording. Oh, fire, that's somebody's Firefly thing. Sorry. Um, okay, you're gonna have 4 minutes for this exercise. No bot, you have to use your brain for this one, but y'all are all very smart. So just think about answering those questions that are there to kind of prime you to come up with your answers. So 4 minutes to start. Okay, y'all, who's willing to share their pre-selling approach in the chat? What is your plan to actually get people pre-sold into your offer idea before you go off and build the whole thing? Maybe you're going to do something similar to me, whereas you decide, like, I want to start with, like, 4 beta clients for this and get them to commit, and I'll build it as we go. Sounds like Rachel's going to start conversations on LinkedIn. Very smart approach. Fernando's going to go freemium. Awesome. So with freemium, does that mean you're still going to build it first? Because building it first isn't the same as pre-selling, right? Because it's easy to get somebody to take something for free, harder to get them to open their wallet. So we'll just get you to think on that. So committing to pre-selling your offer, it's one of the most powerful business decisions that you can make. And it's going to be very important. It's going to give you the clarity that you're looking for. And it's going to force you to clarify your messaging and validate real demand. It'll give you the confidence that you're moving forward with the right solution. So remember, if you can't sell it before you build it, you probably won't be able to sell it after you build it either. A lot of us don't like that. We think, oh, if I just go out and I build it, then it'll be easier to sell it. But that's often not the case. So we covered a lot of ground in just 2 workshops, and you have done an awesome job. Let's take a step back and appreciate everything that you've accomplished in the last 2 workshops. So you've identified a valuable job your customers need to get done. You pinpointed painful problems worth solving. You created and refined a big idea for a scalable offer, and you zeroed in on your target market. And you have a big idea for a scalable offer, and you have a plan to pre-sell it and validate demand. So that's incredible progress, right? So here's what happens. I want you to implement your pre-selling plan within the next 7 days. The momentum that you have right now is really precious, and I don't want you to let it die. Now, focus on saying, what can I do in the next 7 days to get started on this? Maybe it's working on that DM message. If you're having a similar strategy to Rachel, you're just going to DM people. So maybe it's figuring out what's that message? Who am I going to send it to? Start working on it. And remind yourself why you're doing this. You want to create a freedom and impact in your business. You want to escape the fast and famine cycle that you've experienced in your service business to date. It's about leveraging your expertise so you can help more people. And it's about building a business that energizes you rather than drains you. So, on that note, I have a surprise for you. Well, 2 surprises actually. So, your new offer, it needs a name. And choosing the right name is a make or break decision, but I don't want you to get stuck overthinking it. So we have a new bot to help you with this. So everybody here today is going to get access to our bot, the Cha-Ching offer naming bot, and it's going to help you brainstorm a killer product idea. So we're still putting the final touches on this, but you're going to get a follow-up tomorrow with a link to this bot. And you'll also get a webinar replay and access to the online course version of the workshop and any bonuses that you got when you purchased as well. So some of you bought at different times and got different bonuses. You're going to get all of that in access to you tomorrow. So one more thing, if you are excited about your new offer idea, but you're feeling stuck on how to talk about it persuasively to pre-sell it, I've got your back with that. So we're offering a special deal for Painkiller Messaging just for you. It includes everything you need to do fast as fuck research, to position your new offer, to write a persuasive pitch, and to pre-sale with confidence. So for the next 72 hours, all of you get access to this for 25% off, and you get a bunch of cool bonuses. So you can attend a live peer-to-peer workshop where you can actually test your offer idea and your pre-sale pitch with some other smart people. You're going to get our one-click competitor analysis bot that makes doing competitor analysis super fast and easy. And you're going to get a bot building tutorial. So this is going to give you a behind the scenes look at how we build GPTs like the ones you've been using in this workshop. So it's the number one thing we get asked for from our customers. And up until now, we haven't actually shared this anywhere because it's kind of our secret sauce. So only people who came to this workshop and take advantage of this deal can get access to this spot. And don't worry, if you already have Painkiller, you get access to all this stuff too. Email me and I'll make sure you get access to all of these bonuses. Okay, so there's absolutely no pressure for me. You've already got what you need to move forward with confidence. But if you've already been eyeing Painkiller, thinking about it, and you want help to craft this potent and persuading pitch to pre-sell your offer, then now is the perfect time to grab it. Now we're over time, but I'm here to answer questions for you about anything to do with your offer. If you have questions about Painkiller, I'll answer those too. And I would love to answer y'all's questions. But we are over time, so don't feel like you have to hang on. If you want to jump off, jump off. And thank you so much for coming today. Oh, Anna, thank you. And it's nice having people on here who have already got painkiller. That's cool. Yay, Rachel. So we're going to share with you the link to your bot, the freebie bot, the Cha-Ching naming bot. So keep a lookout for that. And I'm seeing Dominic has a question. He says, I'm curious, you've not ever reached your pre-selling target and how you recanted and reimbursed without it affecting your reputation. That's a great question about Dominic. So I have set targets for the last few, but before I built an audience, of course, having an audience makes some of this stuff easier, right? Previous to building an audience, I had put together a productized service offering for this this research customer insight agency I was planning to build. And I had done some outreach to different people, kind of like pitched them on at the time it was kind of like a low cost thing. And it wouldn't have actually been the right thing for me to build. Now I can reflect back and realize that. But I got some pickup. I plan to have 10 people buy, which would make sense for me to make it. And I only ended up having 3 people commit. And I got a bunch of kind of like tire kickers who were like, yeah, maybe later. This isn't a priority right now. And I just decided not to do that. So I refunded the three and I just explained to them, I'm like, I was doing market research as I encourage everybody to do. I haven't framed this offer and sold it to you in a way that got enough people excited. And so I need to go back and figure that out. So, and I just refunded them. So don't be afraid you'll make it right for your people. If you don't move forward with it, just give them the money back. Most of the time, people are so impressed that you actually took the time to do that up front versus just jumping in and they're inspired by it. So don't feel bad about that. What's your go-to credit card payment tool? It depends what you are. We use Stripe. You can just send people a Stripe link and you can also set up Stripe to have recurring payments if it's something that you will be offering on a recurring basis. And it's I think it's pretty, Stripe was originally designed more for developers, but I learned it back when we were doing Vendiv, so it's comfortable to me. There might be much better solutions out there than this now. Um, Rachel asked, do you do a low cost deposit? My offer will be pretty high ticket. It might be weird asking for 5K without knowing that's a great idea, Rachel. So if your plan is to sell something kind of high ticket and you want to do a deposit, you could absolutely ask for a deposit. You can be like, I want to get a commitment from people before we go into building this. I'm asking for a deposit. Even $200 might be a great deposit to get on a 5K offer. And with clarity that if I don't move forward with this, or if my strategy changes, I'll refund you. So a deposit for a higher ticket offer could be good. I've seen people do as low as $1, like as low as $1 for there's this psychological thing that happens once somebody becomes your customer. The chance of them wanting to buy more from you just increases because they like to stay consistent with decisions they've made in the past. That's psychologically the way we work as a human. So I've seen people go as low as $1, but at least the friction of making somebody get out their credit card and actually put it in shows that they're serious about solving that problem, that they're excited about your solution. So it's not necessarily always about getting all the money up front, but it's about the visible action of this is a problem they have that they're willing to put their money behind. Any other questions? Dominic, any other tools that we swear by? Um, I would say, I mean, we don't use anything kind of. One thing that I absolutely love, it might not be something that you need, but I love Senja. We use Senja to collect reviews from our customers and like people. You'll get a link to us asking for your feedback on this workshop, and you'll see the Senja experience as a user. But Senja is a really awesome tool. It allows you to gather product reviews and testimonial videos and text, and it just makes it so easy to share it in lots of beautiful, cool, dynamic ways. So I love Senja. Um, and I love Claude, but I don't know if that's a good one. We use Asana, but we're not as lots of people who are using like Notion or ClickUp to create like really intense kind of like workflows. We don't really do anything like that. Mostly, it's hard to even get me to use Asana as consistently as I should be. So with the painkiller discount, I'm going to drop a special link to you now that you can use to access the discount. We will share a follow-up email for this to I think the email is going to come tomorrow where actually no, maybe in the PS of the email today we'll mention it. So if you'll look for an email from us with a mention of it, and then tomorrow when we share your other bonuses I'll share a link to it then as well. So you'll have 72 hours, so there's not a big rush. But if you already know you want to grab it, you can use that link I just shared. Oh, there is a tool I'll mention, Dominic, that I like, which is Deadline Funnel. So when you go on that website, you'll see that we have a timed offer on that page. And what I like about Deadline Funnel is that it actually allows you to be like to show a lot of integrity with how you run your offers. So this link is only up for 3 days. And by the time that runs out, it's like if you go to that page later, you won't be able to access this deal. So a lot of people use countdown timers that don't actually work the way that they say they do. Like you just go to the page and um, it starts like showing the countdown. And if you go to the page tomorrow, it'll show the countdown again. I don't like that. I think that that's sneaky and manipulative. I like Deadline Funnel because it allows you to set up deadlines to really be clear on them and to make sure that you act with integrity when it comes to your promotions. Um, can they get the 25% deal? I would say that in this case, no.